Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's time to do the Benchmark 3 review. So in Benchmark number 3, I am asking you to look at a series of 7 statements that have to do with possible themes in the novel The Giver. A theme is a message, moral, or lesson that a piece of writing or media teaches us. So in order to defend your answer on Benchmark 3, you are going to need to know how to cite textual evidence. And this is something that we've struggled with this year. And so I provide on Benchmark 3 a copy of this in-text citation guide. So the first thing you need to do is figure out if you want to lead into the quote with your own words like this, or exit with your own words. So it's important to include your own information when leading into or exiting from a quote because it gives us some context. It can tell us who's talking or what's going on in the novel when your quote happens. So, for example, in the novel, the protagonist, blah, 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 right? So we know that in the book, the protagonist is the one doing the action. You could also write, Jonas, the protagonist, or just Jonas's name. But we want to make sure we know who's acting, thinking, or speaking in the quote that you choose. When you start using words that are verbatim, meaning word for word from the book or an article you're reading or whatever, you want to make sure that you use quotation marks. So as soon as you start using the author's words, you put a beginning quotation mark. And then as soon as you stop using the author's words, you put your end quotation mark. But we don't want to put a period yet because in parentheses, we want to put the author's last name and the page number. You do not need to write, for example, Lowry, page 34. It's just Lowry 34 in parentheses, okay? And then your period goes after the page number. This tells your readers that this citation goes with this quote and not something that goes in the next sentence, for example. If you are exiting the quote with your own words, you can start off with whatever the author said, again, using quotation marks, put your citation, and then exit out. So blah, 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 blah is an example of a time when the protagonist had to make a hard choice. And then the period goes at the end here. So again, I'm tagging that quote right away, showing where it came from in the novel. I am asking you for Benchmark 3 to use direct quotes. That means word for word from the book, because I need you to practice how to do that. But even if you were paraphrasing, like if you were just summarizing or putting it into your own words, you would still have to cite it. You'd still have to do that parentheses, author's name, and page number, because you have to show where the information is coming from. So if you're writing a research paper or a persuasive essay, even when you paraphrase, you always want to cite. If an idea or a fact is not coming out of your own brain, you need to say where you got it. So there's a couple opportunities here for practice if you wanted to. For example, in parentheses for this one, here's the full citation of the source. So in parentheses, I would put Smith, which is the last name, and then 14 or 15, which are the page numbers that it comes from. I also want to talk about warrants. I know that these are difficult, but warrants is where you start to put in your opinion and where you explain why you chose the quote you did. How does it help you prove your point, okay? So for example, if I was writing an essay and my big claim was anyone who smokes should quit immediately, I need evidence to back that up, right? So let's say I get this stat, and right now I'm just organizing. I'm not, writing my full essay yet. And I have this stat that every year smoking kills approximately 43,000 people in the United States, according to the CDC, okay? My warrant for that could be something like, this proves that quitting smoking is essential because the effects of long-term smoking are so devastating, they lead to life-ending conditions for a group of people larger than the entire city of Westerville, Ohio. Now, with this fact that it kills 43,000 people every year, you might think, well, why do I need to include a warrant about that? That's just obviously bad. But you need to remember that not everyone has the same perspective as you. So another person could look at that and say, well, 43,000 people isn't that many when you have a population of more than 330 million, right? Somebody might come back and say that car accidents kill more people every year, so it's not that bad. So what I chose to do in my warrant is show that that number of people is larger than a mid-sized city in central Ohio. So I'm forcing people then to think about, well, what if every single person who lived in Westerville suddenly disappeared, right? So that's why you use a warrant, because you have to recognize that not everyone is going to interpret things the same way that you do. So for example, if I had the statistic that since 1964, 2.5 million non-smokers have died from health problems caused by exposure to secondhand smoke, my warrant then is explaining that, hey, some people would say, hey, if you smoke and you get cancer or something and die, well, that's your own fault because you made that choice. So I want to show then they're also putting others in danger who had no say about their exposure to secondhand smoke, including children. So I'm trying to put in my reader's mind, it's not just about the person doing the action, it's affecting other people. Same here. If I say 4.5 trillion cigarette butts are disposed of each year, and only half of them end up in landfills, I want to explain why I think this statistic is so powerful. This proves the harmful effect of smoking because those cigarette butts are damaging soil that feeds plants. So that's going to, affect the food that people eat. It's affecting the living environments of millions of animals that have no choice to be exposed to these poisons. So again, I'm showing people why I think my evidence is important. And you're going to do the same thing with the giver. So if one of the statements in the giver is that sometimes it's okay to lie, and you agree, you need to provide evidence from the book of some place where a character lies for a good reason, but then you need to explain what was the positive outcome of that action. Why does this support that sometimes it's okay to lie? So you need to explain the logic going on in your brain as to why you came to the answer that you did. In our review sessions this week, a few people in classes asked, do you have to find quotes from the last 2 chapters of the book? And the answer is no. You can include, for benchmark 3, quotes from anywhere in the novel, any place that you find good evidence for the statements that you want to answer. So again, for benchmark 3, there are 7 statements, and you are going to respond to any 3 of them. And you are answering in a CEWEW format. That means for each one, you should have 2 pieces of evidence and a warrant for each piece of evidence. If you need any other assistance with benchmark 3, send me an email. I should be able to get back to you right away. I'm sorry that in this video there was background noise because my 3-year-old is doing something crazy upstairs and I'm not up there to tell him to stop. I miss all of you. I was really glad to see those of you that came to the review sessions. And I really missed everyone that I wasn't able to see. So I hope you have a great rest of this week. Next week, you have nothing due from me. It's just making up any assignments you may have missed along the way. So again, if you need help, let me know.